Hello everyone, and welcome to my B&B Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Steffi Forrester stood in the dimly lighted living room of the cliffside estate, the Pacific Ocean smashing against the rocks below her like a constant heartbeat. The envelope in her fingers felt heavier than the world itself, its contents a ticking time bomb with the potential to shatter the fragile tranquility she'd been holding onto for months. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open, the sound of ripped paper ringing through the solitude. The DNA test findings, written in black ink on white paper, were ruthless and final. Probability of paternity: 99.9999%. Liam Spencer. Her breath caught in her throat, resulting in a loud gasp that appeared to suck the air from the room. Liam was the father of the baby she was carrying. Not Finn's. Not her husband's. The man who had supported her through every storm, betrayal, and moment of doubt. John Finn Finnegan, the doctor who had saved her life more times than she could remember. The man who had loved her with a ferocity that felt like salvation. And now this. Steffi's knees collapsed, and she slumped into the luxurious sectional sofa, where she and Finn had spent countless evenings snuggled up, dreaming of their future. A future that is now in ruins. She pushed her hand on her distended belly, feeling a small flutter of movement beneath her fingers. This baby, this small life growing inside her, was a miracle created from turmoil. A night she scarcely recalled. A moment of weakness with her ex-husband, Liam, Kelly's father. A night that occurred during one of those dark periods when she and Finn were estranged, when sadness and resentment had drawn her back into Liam's arms. It had been a mistake. A rash, impulsive mistake. She had told herself that over and over, even when the nausea set in and the pregnancy test came back positive. She'd prayed it was Finn's, that the universe would correct itself and give her the family she'd worked so hard to create. But the universe seemed to have other plans. The front door snapped open and Steffi's heart pounded. Finn's footfall resonated over the hardwood floor, steady and familiar, like the sound of home. She pushed the envelope behind a throw pillow, her hands trembling as she brushed her clothing over her abdomen. She wasn't prepared. Not yet. She couldn't confront him with the truth, especially since his eyes still lit up every time he stroked her stomach and whispered to their baby about the life they'd build together. Steffi. Finn's voice rang out, warm and concerned. He emerged in the doorway, his dark hair slightly disheveled by the wind, and his white coat hung over one arm. He was still dressed in scrubs, having just finished his shift at the hospital. "Are you okay? You didn't respond to my texts." "I'm fine," she pretended, faking a smile that felt like a split in her soul. "I'm just tired. Long day." Finn crossed the room in a few paces, his gaze fixed on hers. He was always so tuned into her, reading her moods like a book he had memorized. He knelt in front of her, holding her hands in his. "You don't look well. Talk to me." She wanted to. God, she wanted to unload everything, to let the truth out, regardless of the repercussions. But the words remained in her throat, suffocating her. How could she inform him? How could she destroy the man's heart, who had given her everything? "It's nothing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just pregnancy hormones. You know how it is." Finn furrowed his brow but did not push. Instead he leaned closer, kissing her forehead and then her tummy. "Hey little one," he said softly, his voice full of love. "Daddy's home." Steffi's eyes stung from unshed tears. Daddy. Finn had accepted this baby from the moment she told him she was pregnant, without hesitation or doubt. He'd been there for every checkup and scan, holding her hand as they watched their child's heartbeat flicker on the monitor. He had painted the nursery, put together the crib, and selected little onesies with a grin that made her heart hurt. And now she was about to ruin him. The next few days passed in a fog of shame and fear. Steffi averted Finn's eyes, made excuses for sleeping in the guest room, and claimed weariness or discomfort. She couldn't bear to let him touch her, especially when the secret was eating her alive. She had booked the DNA test in secrecy, motivated by a desire to know the truth before the baby arrived. She persuaded herself it was for closure and certainty. But now that she had it, she wished she could destroy the results and pretend they did not exist. Liam, of course, was oblivious. He had been overjoyed when she informed him she was pregnant, presuming the kid was his. They'd slept together that one night, after all, in a moment of weakness when Hope had broken his heart again and Steffi was wallowing in her own grief. He'd been phoning her constantly, talking about names and nursery themes, and acting like they were a family again. She held him at arm's length, telling him she needed time and was still married to Finn. But the truth was that she didn't know how to tell him either. Not when Finn had been there day after day, loving her despite the insanity. Hope was the one who forced the issue. Hope Logan, Liam's second ex-wife, had been stuck in the same tangled web of love and treachery for many years. She overheard Liam discussing the pregnancy with Thomas, speculating on whether the baby was his. Hope had marched right into Steffi's office at Forrester Creations, her eyes filled with a mix of hurt and resolve. "Is this true?" Hope demanded, shutting the door behind her. "Is the baby Liam's?" Steffi froze as her pen hovered over a design sketch. "Hope, do not lie to me, Steffi. I overheard Liam. He thinks the baby is his. Is it?" The space felt too small and the air was too heavy. Steffi's pulse beat in her ears. She may lie to give herself more time. But Hope deserved the truth, and Steffi was tired of shouldering the burden alone. "Yes," she finally responded, her voice scarcely audible. The DNA test results came back. "It is Liam's." Hope's face collapsed with astonishment and betrayal. "You have slept with him while you were married to Finn." "It was one night," Steffi explained, her voice breaking. "We were separated. I thought Finn and I were finished. That was a mistake, Hope. A terrible mistake." Hope shook her head as tears streamed down her face. "Does Finn know?" "Not yet." Steffi's hands clenched in her lap. "I don't know how to tell him. You and your family. You need to inform him, Steffi. And Liam. They both deserve to know." Steffi nodded, her throat tightening. Hope was correct, but the notion of saying the words out made her want to curl up and hide. That night, Steffi couldn't take it any longer. Finn arrived home late, his face etched with tiredness after a long shift. He discovered her in the nursery, standing over the cot with her hands grasping the rail so tightly that her knuckles were white. "Steffi," he whispered softly, entering the room. "What's wrong?" She turned to face him, holding the envelope in her hand. Her heart pounded so hard she feared it might burst. "Finn, I need to tell you something." His eyes narrowed, his concern growing. "Okay. Whatever it is, we will work it out together." She wished it were true. She handed him the envelope, her hands quivering. "Just read it." Finn accepted it, his brow furrowing as he took out the papers. His eyes skimmed the page, and Steffi noticed the color draining from his face. His jaw tightened, and his fists gripped the paper so firmly it crinkled. "No," he said quietly, his voice harsh. "This can't. Steffi, tell me this isn't real." "I'm sorry," she gasped out, tears running down her cheeks. "It was just one night, Finn. One night we were apart. I didn't know and I didn't think." "You slept with Liam," he continued, his tone cold and unbelieving. "And this baby, it's his." She nodded, unable to respond. The silence that followed was deafening, and a chasm formed between them. Finn's eyes, usually warm and full of love, were cold and shattered. "You led me to believe this was our baby," he added, his voice breaking. "All the time. Steffi, you allowed me to love this child through appointments, nursery, and plans. And it is not mine. I didn't know for sure," she added, coming closer to him, hoping to bridge the gap. "I hoped it was yours. I wanted it to be yours. But it's not." He moved away, shaking his head. "This is Liam's. Again. Always Liam." "Finn, please," she implored, reaching out to him. "I love you. This does not affect that." He laughed in a harsh, broken tone. "Doesn't change anything? Steffi, you have been lying to me for months. You allowed me to construct a life on a falsehood." "I was scared," she admitted, her voice shaking. "I wasn't sure how to tell you. I did not want to lose you." "You already have," he answered calmly, his words cutting deeper than any yell could have. He dropped the papers to the floor and walked away, leaving her alone in the nursery with the ghost of their dreams. The reaction was quick and harsh. Finn left that night, carrying only a duffel bag and his sadness. He did not scream, yell, throw objects, or blaspheme her name. He simply departed, his silence as deadly as any struggle. Steffi called Liam, her voice lifeless, and told him the truth. He was ecstatic, talking about being a family again and raising their child together. She scarcely heard him, her mind repeating Finn's devastated visage repeatedly. The story circulated rapidly through the Forrester and Logan circles. Ridge was outraged, divided between his devotion to his daughter and his admiration for Finn. Brooke was empathetic, but she couldn't contain her joy that Liam was the father. A twisted win in the never-ending Spencer-Forrester-Logan triangle. Hope was distraught, her hopes for a future with Liam shattered yet again. Steffi's brother Thomas was the only one who appeared to comprehend her anguish, sitting with her in quiet as she grieved. Finn poured himself into his work, taking up extra shifts at the hospital and avoiding anyone who mentioned Steffi. He couldn't bear to see her or think of her with Liam's child. The betrayal was more than simply the baby. It was the lie, the months of deception, and the fact that she had allowed him to love a child who was not his. He'd lost his mother, Sheila, to her own insanity, and now he was losing Steffi to her unwillingness to decide. Steffi attempted to contact him, leaving voicemails that he never returned and sending texts that he disregarded. She went to the hospital, but he was always too preoccupied, surrounded by colleagues who looked at her with sympathy or contempt. She was aware that she had caused irreversible damage, yet she couldn't let him go. Not without a struggle. One night she found him at the beach, where they had once sworn to be together forever. The moon hung low in the sky, pouring silver light over the waves. He was sitting in the sand, knees drawn up, looking out at the water. "Finn," she whispered gently, her voice carried on the wind. He didn't turn or acknowledge her. She sat next him, leaving space between them, her belly a stark reminder of the truth that had driven them apart. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her voice full of sorrow. "I realize that doesn't solve anything, but I am. I never intended to hurt you." "You didn't just hurt me, Steffi," he explained, his voice low and harsh. "You have devastated me. I adored that baby. I loved you. And everything was a lie." "It wasn't a lie," she explained, turning to face him. "My love for you has never been a lie. I botched up, Finn. I made a mistake and was too afraid to confront it. But I've never stopped loving you." He glanced at her with red-rimmed eyes and a pained expression on his face. "How can I believe this? After everything?" "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "But I won't give up on us. I can't." He shook his head, looking back at the ocean. "Steffi, there is no us. Not anymore." The weeks that followed were a haze of sadness and responsibility. Steffi prepared for the baby's arrival by painting the nursery alone and folding tiny garments with tears in her eyes. Liam was there, eager and attentive, but his presence paled in comparison to what she had lost. He talked of moving in and having a family, but Steffi didn't see it. Not while her heart was still with Finn. Meanwhile, Finn was in a downward spiral. He took chances at work, worked late, and avoided his buddies. Lee, his adopted mother, attempted to contact him, but he ignored her. He couldn't take the pity and the questions. He saw Steffi everywhere, in the hospital corridors, in the faces of every pregnant patient, and in the nightmares that plagued him at night. One day, Steffi went into labor. It was far too early, and fear set in as she called for an ambulance. Liam was out of town and unavailable. In an act of desperation, she called Finn. He answered the first call, his voice tense with terror. "I'm on my way," he announced, and he arrived before the paramedics, holding her hand as they hurried her to the hospital. He remained with her throughout the labor, his medical knowledge comforting her even as he averted her gaze. The baby arrived quickly, a small boy with Liam's eyes and Steffi's dark hair. Finn held the baby first, his hands firm as he checked his vital signs, his expression blank. Steffi watched him with an aching heart. "Finn," she said quietly, "please." He placed the infant in her arms, and his touch lingered for a time. "He's perfect," he remarked, his voice hoarse. Then he went away, leaving her with her son and a heart filled with grief. Steffi's life revolved around the baby, whom she called Hayes in honor of Finn's mother. Liam was there, gushing over his son and imagining a future Steffi couldn't completely embrace. She caught occasional glances of Finn at the hospital, but he kept his distance. She sent him letters and voicemails that he never returned. Steffi met him again some months later, at Kelly's school performance. He was there with a date, a kind-looking hospital nurse. Steffi's heart twisted as she saw them laughing together. Finn's smile a shell of what it once was. She approached him afterwards, Hayes in her arms and Kelly by her side. "Finn," she said calmly despite the fury inside. "Can we talk?" He hesitated, and his date excused herself to give them some room. "What is it, Steffi?" "I miss you," she replied simply. "I understand I don't have the right to say that, but I do. I miss us." He gazed at her, then at Hayes, his expression softening briefly. "I miss you too," he confessed. "But I cannot do this again. I cannot live in Liam's shadow." "You're not in his shadow," she declared vehemently. "You are everything, Finn. You always were." He shook his head and stepped back. "Perhaps once. But not anymore." He went away, leaving Steffi standing there with her son, watching the man she loved slide further away. The secret was out, and the truth was disclosed, but the price was a heart wounded beyond repair. Steffi had her children, family, and empire at Forrester Creations. But without Finn, everything felt hollow. The water kept crashing, the globe kept revolving, and Steffi Forrester faced a destiny she never imagined. One in which love was insufficient to restore what was broken. The morning sun shone through the cliffside house's large glass windows, coloring the living room a beautiful gold. Steffi Forrester stayed unmoving, her hands resting on her abdomen as if she could keep her world together through sheer willpower. The ocean below shouted in defiance, yet quiet pressed tight against her breast. For weeks, she had told herself that secrets faded over time, that the truth could be buried beneath love, dedication, and hope. But today, the envelope on the kitchen counter demonstrated different. It wasn't simply a piece of paper. It was a decision that would alter everything. Her phone vibrated. It was Finn. His name showing on the screen sent shivers down her spine. She had been avoiding the situation, clinging to the sense of routine. She couldn't face him yet, not with the truth sitting there, sealed in white, whispering her guilt. She let it ring out. Then she slumped into a nearby chair, clutching the letter. When she finally tore it open, her hands shook furiously, nearly ripping the paper in half. Her eyes wandered over the words repeatedly, unwilling to trust them. Paternity test results reveal Liam Spencer as the biological father. Her breath caught in her throat. The sound that escaped her was not quite a sob, nor quite a scream, but rather raw and human. The sound of a heart breaking silently inside a cage of falsehoods. The door opened behind her. "Steffi." Finn's voice was faint and timid. He stood still in his scrubs, holding a bouquet of lilies. He'd been working the night shift again, protecting lives as she drowned in hers. His tiredness was visible on his face, but the tenderness in his eyes, that unconditional love, made the weight of her treachery even greater. She hurriedly wiped away her tears and folded the paper, tucking it inside her sweater pocket. "Hey, I didn't hear you come in." He grinned softly. "Are you okay? You look pale." "I'm fine," she claimed. "Just tired." He moved closer, stroking a piece of hair away from her face. "You've been fatigued a lot recently. I suppose that's natural. You are carrying our baby." The word "our" ripped into her like a razor. Her stomach churned. She nodded hastily and forced a grin. "Yeah. Our baby." He leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I picked up your prenatal vitamins. And I have rescheduled your appointment for tomorrow. I want to be there this time." Steffi closed her eyes. She wanted to inform him. She wanted to quit pretending and be free of this trap. But how can you tell the man you love, the man you've trusted, that the baby he's been fantasizing about isn't his? "I need some air," she murmured abruptly, moving away. "Do you want me to come?" "No," she whispered. "I'll just walk down to the beach. Clear my head." He watched her leave, concern etched on every line of his face. Outside, the salty wind pricked her skin like needles. The ocean's constant pulse echoed the insanity within her. She went until the home was just a distant shape on the hill, then sat on a rock, shedding tears freely for the first time in weeks. She could still recall that night when everything had gone wrong. It had been storming. Liam had arrived, shattered and inebriated, after feeling hope had betrayed him. He had been lost, angry and shattered as had she. They were conversing, attempting to console each other, and then they crossed the line that should never have been crossed again. The next morning, they both vowed it would never happen again. They'd promised to keep it a secret, a mistake that would disappear with time. But time had not dimmed anything. It had merely sharpened the edges.